All right, so let's dive into the scope of President Trump's clemency order. Over 1,500 individuals received pardons, and 14 key organizers had their sentences commuted.
Commuted to time served. Yeah, that's leadership right there. Finally calling out the political nonsense surrounding these cases.
Duke, these aren't just numbers on a page. Many of these cases involve trespassing, yes, but organizers. We're talking about high-level individuals who played significant roles in coordinating the events. How does commuting their sentences to time served help national reconciliation?
Look, the justice system's been weaponized. You know it. I know it. This isn't about reconciliation. This is about correcting a biased process. Those folks weren't terrorists. They were citizens exercising free speech. First Amendment, plain and simple.
But the directive to dismiss pending charges? That undermines the legal system entirely. Federal judges and attorneys have spoken out, warning that this sets a dangerous precedent for accountability.
Dangerous precedent? Come on, Angeli. The precedent was already set when these charges were slapped together to make examples of people. We've got to draw the line somewhere. Dropping these charges is saying enough is enough.
And what about the families of those who lost their lives during the riots? One family member said, and I quote, "This pardon trivializes our loss."
And my heart goes out to them. It really does. But those pardons aren't saying folks didn't break the law. They're saying the punishment didn't match the crime. Big difference.
Well, it feels like more than that, Duke. It seems to dismiss the violence as inconsequential. How do you imagine officers who were injured at the Capitol feel about this decision? It's like their sacrifices are being brushed aside.
I wouldn't call it brushed aside. It's about setting priorities for the nation. Look, not all these people were violent. Some just walked in the wrong door. But yeah, we owe those officers respect. No doubt about that.
Respect? That's hard to reconcile with an order that, for all its talk of justice reform, feels like it erodes the accountability they fought to defend.
You bring up accountability, Angeli, but when Senator Hawley says this is about protecting civil liberties, he's spot on. Think about it. These pardons aren't condoning bad behavior. They're calling out the hypocrisy of a biased system. That's the real issue here.
Logical for who, Duke? Hawley may call this a win for civil liberties, but let's not ignore that Speaker Hakeem Jeffries framed it differently. He called the pardons an affront to democracy and said accountability is essential to safeguarding our institutions.
Yeah, well, that's political theater. You don't protect democracy by letting biased prosecutions run wild. It's like Jeffries forgot what country we're in. Freedom, rights, due process. That's the backbone of what I spent 2 decades fighting for.
But at what cost, Duke? Pardons for over 1,500 individuals it's not just about freedom of speech, it's about actions that led to chaos. These weren't peaceful protests. They were undeniably a breach of democratic norms, of trust, of safety for those inside the Capitol.
I'm not blind, Angeli. Some folks crossed the line, can't argue that. But what about the majority who didn't? Hawley's fighting for them. Not everyone was violent. Not everyone destroyed property. Some just showed up because they believed they had a right to be heard. That's what folks like me talk about with my old Army buddies. It's about where we draw the line. Are we protecting democracy, or are we weaponizing justice against dissenters?
I hear you on drawing lines, but aren't we also sending a message? What accountability looks like in moments like this defines our collective values. Jeffries highlighted how these actions have lasting consequences, not just procedurally but socially. How do we, as a nation, reconcile with both accountability and justice?
Reconciling starts with not painting everyone with the same damn brush. You prosecute violent offenders, not the guy who was taking selfies in the rotunda. My Army pals, they're with me on this. We're all about fairness, not revenge. If you can't see the line, then you're ignoring why these folks were out there to begin with.
Duke, it's not just about intentions. The clemency contextualizes actions that directly or indirectly put lives at risk. Some organizers were heavily involved in planning. Their commuted sentences, especially, are seen as a betrayal to the rule of law by many Americans.
Yeah, some Americans, sure. But this isn't just about the people yelling from their political soapboxes. Pardons don't erase actions. They're about giving folks a second chance. Our institutions survive because we adjust when things go wrong. That's leadership.
Leadership, Duke? Maybe. But many see it as a precedent, one that shifts the boundaries of accountability and clemency forever. Building on what we just discussed, the clemency decisions not only reflect immediate accountability concerns, but also challenge the boundaries of presidential power. Looking ahead, Duke, what does this mean for future administrations? Are we reshaping clemency into something far more politically charged?
Angeli, every president's got to use the tools they have, right? What folks don't realize is this sets a precedent, sure, but it's about taking a stand when the system's gotten out of balance.
But doesn't that imbalance come at a cost? Let's talk about social cohesion here. Public trust in institutions is already fragile. Pardoning these individuals risks, further stretching that tension to a breaking point.
Public trust's already at a breaking point, Angeli. Look around. People feel like they can't trust the system. They see it picking winners and losers. This clemency is a step to restore some faith that the little guy won't just get crushed.
But Duke, what about the message this sends? Experts warn this might, embolden future acts of political violence. Where's the accountability?
You keep saying accountability, but accountability's a two-way street. We're also holding the system accountable for overreach. Look, no one's saying violence is okay, but if we keep treating every act of dissent like it's treason, then we're asking for more trouble down the road.
That's the balance, isn't it? Restoring faith while ensuring accountability. The spear analysis reflects so many layers here. The societal divisions, the strain on law enforcement, even the implications for economic trust and stability. It's complicated, to say the least.
Damn right it's complicated, but you gotta start somewhere, and for me, it's about those folks who didn't cause harm. Repairing trust doesn't mean crushing everyone equally. It means justice that, well, fits the crime, doesn't it?
I see where you're coming from, but for a lot of people, it feels like a slippery slope. If we redefine justice every time it's politically convenient, what happens to the integrity of the system long term?
Yeah, long term's always the worry. But the system's gotta work today, Angeli. Think about it. If we don't adapt, we just keep stoking these fires of division. And that, well, that's a threat to stability all on its own.
True, adaptation's key, but at what cost? The clemency exposes the tension between fairness and fallout. It's a reckoning for justice, trust, and accountability.
A reckoning. Yeah, that's one way to put it. Look, we're at a crossroads, Angeli, and whether you see this as leadership or a bad call, one thing's clear. It puts the spotlight on what this country stands for. Freedom, accountability, and yeah, sometimes forgiving when it's hard.
And on that note, we're out of time. This has been a fascinating conversation, Duke, and, well, it's clear that the story of these pardons is far from over.
Yeah, thanks, Angeli. And to our listeners, stay sharp out there. These aren't easy times, but like always, we figure it out together.
And that's all for today. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.